I stand in the center of the living room, surrounded by gold balloons and tables laden with food that I helped set up myself, when I hear Victoria's voice slicing through the air like a knife. "I have an important announcement to make," she says, and everyone goes quiet. My heart beats normally, calm, because I do not yet know what is coming. She smiles. That smile I now understand was never real, and she releases the words as if they were celebratory confetti. "Starting today, Margaret is no longer going to see my children. She is a bad influence on Liam and Noah, and as a mother, I have to protect them." She says it loudly. Loud enough for every single person at this party to hear. Loud enough for everyone to look at me. Loud enough for the silence that follows to be so heavy it almost crushes me. I feel the stares sticking into me like needles, waiting for me to cry, to beg, to break right there in front of everyone. But something strange happens inside me. Something I did not expect myself. Instead of tears, I feel a cold calm washing down my back, a clarity I have never felt before. I smile. It is not a fake or forced smile. It is real. Because in that exact moment, while Victoria waits to see me destroyed, I understand something she did not calculate. She just showed everyone who she really is. "As you wish, Victoria," I say, and my voice comes out steadier than I imagined. I pull my cell phone out of my handbag, that leather handbag my husband gave me before he passed away, and I dial the bank's number. Everyone keeps staring, but now there is confusion on their faces. Victoria furrows her brow. She does not understand what I am doing. "Yes, good afternoon. This is Margaret Sullivan. I need to cancel an automatic transfer." I speak clearly, without rushing, while Victoria turns pale. "The one that goes to Robert Sullivan's account on the 20th of every month. Yes, that is the one. $4,500 monthly. I want to cancel it immediately and ensure the one for this month is not processed." The silence is different now. Heavy, dense. I see Victoria's friends stop laughing. I see them exchanging glances, and then I understand. They all knew. They all knew she was living off my money. Victoria tries to speak, but her voice fails her. Robert, my own son, looks at me from the other side of the room with huge eyes, as if he just woke up from a long dream. "Mom, wait," he says it, but I raise my hand. "No, Robert, I am not waiting anymore. Your wife just decided that I am a bad influence on my grandchildren. That is fine. It is her decision as a mother, but I also have the right to make decisions." I put the cell phone away and look Victoria straight in the eyes. She is trembling, and it is not from the cold. "Enjoy your party, Victoria. I paid for it in full, including that 3-tiered cake you wanted so much. Consider it my parting gift." I turn around and walk toward the door. My legs do not shake. My hands do not sweat. I walk upright, with my head held high, and every step I take feels like I am waking up from a nightmare that lasted 5 years. I hear whispers behind me. Someone says something about the money. Another voice mentions that Victoria always bragged about things she could not afford. A third voice, lower, whispers. I always knew something did not add up, but I do not turn back. I do not need to see their faces to know that Victoria's perfect plan just blew up in her own face. I reach my car, that small silver sedan I bought with my pension, and I sit behind the wheel. Only then, in the solitude of the car, do I breathe deeply. I do not cry, not yet, because something inside me knows this does not end here. This is just beginning. I start the engine and drive toward my house, that little cottage 20 minutes away, and the whole way there I am thinking about how I got here, how I allowed this to happen, how a 68-year-old woman, who worked her entire life, who raised her son alone after my husband died, ended up being treated like garbage in front of strangers. When I get home, I sit in the armchair in the living room and look at the photos on the mantelpiece. Liam and Noah smiling. My grandchildren. My little ones. I have watched them grow since they were born. I was at every birthday, every school recital, every important moment. It was I who took care of Liam when he had pneumonia, and Victoria said she was too busy. It was I who taught Noah to read because he was falling behind in school. It was I who was always there, unconditionally, without asking for anything in return. And now they tell me I am a bad influence. The words echo in my head like bells. Bad influence. Me, who never taught them anything bad. Me, who only gave them love. But then I remember something Susan, my lifelong friend, told me 2 months ago when I told her Victoria would not let me see the boys often. Margaret, that woman is using you, and the day you are no longer useful to her, she is going to toss you out like an old rag. In that moment I got angry with Susan. I told her she did not understand, that Victoria was just stressed, that being a young mother is hard. But Susan was right. She was always right. I pick up my cell phone again and check the messages. I have 17 missed calls. 12 are from Robert, 3 from Victoria, 2 from numbers I do not recognize. None of them matter to me. I open the banking app and look at the transactions from the last 5 years. Transfer after transfer, $4,500 every month. $54,000 a year, for 5 years. That is $270,000. Almost everything I had left after selling the big house where my husband and I lived. Almost my entire inheritance. And that is, without counting the gifts, the dinners, the outings, the clothes for the boys, the toys, the vacations I paid for. If I add it all up, it probably reaches $350,000, maybe more. I close my eyes and feel something breaking inside me. It is not sadness, it is something worse. It is the cold and clear realization that I was a fool, an old, lonely fool who believed money could buy her family's love. The phone does not stop ringing. I put it on silent and place it face down on the table. I do not want to talk to anyone. Not yet. I need to think. I need to understand how I reached this point. I get up and go to the kitchen. I make a cup of chamomile tea, the kind that always calms my nerves, and I sit by the window overlooking the garden. Outside it is getting dark. The streetlights turn on one by one, as if the world keeps turning normally while mine has just stopped. I take a sip of the hot tea and let the memories come. I do not stop them. I do not avoid them. For the first time in a long time, I allow myself to see them exactly as they were, without the filters of maternal love, without the excuses I always invented for them. I met Victoria 6 years ago. Robert brought her to dinner one Sunday. I remember she seemed pretty, polite, a little shy. She wore a coral-colored dress and brought flowers for me, white roses. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Sullivan," she said with that soft voice. I later discovered she could change whenever it suited her. I was happy. My son, who had gone through 2 failed relationships, finally seemed to have found someone stable, someone who looked at him with admiration, someone who seemed to truly love him. Or so I thought. During the first few months, Victoria was perfect. She called me to ask for cooking advice. She asked about the family. She included me in her plans. "Mrs. Sullivan, do you want to come to the movies with us this Saturday? Mrs. Sullivan, will you teach me how to make that soup Robert loves?" I was delighted. I thought I had gained not just a daughter-in-law, but a daughter. Then they got married. It was a small but beautiful wedding. I paid for the wedding dress because Victoria said her family could not help. I also paid for the venue and the food. It was $18,000 in total. Robert promised me they would pay me back little by little, but they never did, and I never claimed it. How was I going to demand money from my only son on the happiest day of his life? After the wedding, they moved into an apartment. It was not much, but it was theirs, or so I thought. One day Robert came to visit me with a worried look on his face. "Mom, I need to ask you for a big favor," he said, and I already knew what was coming. "We are short on money. The apartment costs more than we thought, and Victoria wants to quit her job because she is very stressed." I asked him why Victoria wanted to quit her job if they had only been married for 3 months. Robert stayed silent. Then he said something that should have alerted me, but at that moment seemed tender. "She says she wants to focus on making our house a real home." I started giving them $1,500 a month. It was what I could afford without tightening my belt too much. But every 2 months there was something new. The car broke down. They need new furniture. They have credit card debt. It was always Victoria who called. Always with that sweet, worried, almost embarrassed voice. "Mrs. Sullivan, you do not know how much it hurts me to ask you this, but I do not know who else to turn to. You are the only family we really have nearby. And I fell for it, every time. Because I did not want to see my sons suffer. Because I did not want them to start their marriage with problems. Because Victoria made me feel important, needed, as if I were the hero saving the day. Now I understand that was exactly what she wanted me to feel. When Liam was born, everything changed. Victoria called me crying from the hospital. "Mrs. Sullivan, I need you to come. I am scared. I do not know if I am going to be a good mother." I dropped everything and went. I spent 3 weeks taking care of her, cooking, cleaning, helping with the baby while she recovered. Robert worked all day, and I was there, being the perfect grandmother and the perfect nurse and the perfect maid. But I was happy. I had a grandson, a little baby who looked at me with those huge eyes and needed me. That was the only thing that mattered. Or so I told myself every night when I arrived at my house with a wrecked back and hands swollen from washing so many diapers and bottles. It was after Liam's birth that the transfers went up to $3,000. "It is just that now with the baby the expenses are higher," explained Victoria. "Diapers, formula, clothes, the pediatrician. Everything is so expensive. Mrs. Sullivan, I do not know how we are going to make it." And I, like the fool I was, increased the amount, without thinking twice, because my grandson needed things and I could give them, because being useful made me feel alive. Because after my husband died, 5 years earlier, I had been left floating in an empty house, not knowing what to do with my life. Robert and Victoria gave meaning to my days. Or so I believed. The first signs of control arrived when Liam was 1 year old. I wanted to take him to the park on a Saturday afternoon. Victoria said no, that it was too cold. It was March, and the weather was perfect, but I did not argue. The following week I wanted to take him to get ice cream. Victoria said Liam was allergic to dairy. He never had been before. But again, I did not argue. I started to notice a pattern. Every time I proposed doing something with Liam, Victoria had a reason to say no. But if she needed me to watch Liam because she had plans with her friends, then it was fine. Then I was trustworthy. Then I was not a bad influence. One day I mentioned this to Susan while we were having coffee at her house. "That woman is manipulating you, Margaret," Susan told me, with that frankness she always had. "She uses you when it suits her and pushes you away when it does not. And you allow it because you are afraid of losing your grandson." I got so angry I did not speak to Susan for 2 months. How dared she say that about Victoria? Victoria was good. Victoria was just being protective. Victoria was young, and I had to understand that first-time mothers are like that. Every excuse in the world went through my mind except the truth. Except accepting that Susan was right. When Noah was born, 3 years later, the dynamic repeated itself but worse. This time Victoria did not even pretend to need my emotional support. She called straight to the point. "Mrs. Sullivan, you are going to need to come help me again. But this time I have clear rules. No spoiling the children with candy, no letting them watch television, and I need you to respect my sleep schedules for them." I accepted everything, every humiliating rule, every order disguised as a request, because I wanted to be close to my grandchildren, because in my head, if I was not there, who was going to take care of them properly? The transfers went up to $4,500 monthly. "Now we are 4, said Victoria, as if that explained everything. During the next 2 years, my life became a routine of giving and staying silent. Every time I saw my grandchildren, I had to ask Victoria for permission. Every gift I wanted to buy them, I had to consult it first. Every time I wanted to bring them to my house, I had to wait for her to decide if it was convenient or not. And I accepted it all because I had been taught that is how you keep family peace, that grandmothers should not interfere, that one must respect the parents' decisions. But no one taught me that respecting does not mean disappearing, that loving does not mean becoming a slave, that being a grandmother does not mean losing your dignity. There was a moment, exactly 1 year ago, that should have opened my eyes. It was my 67th birthday. I did not expect much. I have never liked making a fuss about my birthday. But I thought that at least Robert and the boys would come for dinner. I prepared Robert's favorite meal, that chicken and sauce he has loved since he was a boy. I bought a small cake. I arranged the table with fresh flowers. I waited from 6 in the evening. At 7, Robert sent me a message. "Mom, I am so sorry. Victoria organized a dinner with her family, and I cannot cancel. I will make it up to you tomorrow, I promise." He never made it up to me. That night I ate alone, watching the little candles on the cake melt, and I told myself it did not matter, that they had their busy lives, that I was being selfish for expecting attention. Now I wonder how many times I swallowed the humiliation, telling myself it was selfishness to want my only family to remember me. Things got worse when Victoria started working again. She got a part-time job at a clothing boutique. I thought that would mean they would no longer need so much of my money. How naive I was. The transfers remained the same, but now Victoria had a new speech. "Mrs. Sullivan, this job is for me, for my mental health. I cannot use my paycheck for household expenses. That would make me feel like I am working out of obligation and not personal fulfillment." I nodded, as always. Later, I found out through Robert that Victoria's entire paycheck went to clothes, shoes, beauty treatments, and outings with her friends. Things I never could give myself because I was busy giving to them. The boys were growing and I saw them less and less. Liam was already 8 years old and Noah 6. They were beautiful, intelligent, full of energy. Every time I managed to spend time with them, they filled my soul. They told me about school, their friends, their dreams. Liam wanted to be an astronaut. Noah wanted to have a horse farm. I listened to them for hours, memorizing every word, because I knew weeks would pass before seeing them again. Victoria always had excuses, that the boys had homework, that they were tired, that they had activities. But then I would see photos on her social media of the boys at the park with her, in restaurants, at parties. The truth was simple and painful. Victoria decided when I could be a grandmother. 6 months ago, something changed in Victoria's attitude toward me. She became colder, sharper. She no longer feigned kindness. When I called, she barely answered. When I asked about the boys, she answered in monosyllables. "They are fine. They are busy. Not right now." I asked Robert if I had done something wrong, if I had offended Victoria in some way. Robert looked at me with those tired eyes he has now, so different from the bright eyes he had before getting married, and told me, "Mom, Victoria is stressed. Give her time." It was always give her time. It was always wait. It was always I who had to understand, yield, disappear. Then came last month. Victoria called me on a Tuesday night. I was about to go to bed when I saw her name on the screen. I answered quickly, with my heart racing, thinking maybe something had happened to the boys. "Mrs. Sullivan, I need to speak with you about something important," said Victoria with a voice I did not recognize. It sounded official, as if it were a business meeting. "Tell me, Victoria, what is wrong? I have been thinking a lot about my children's upbringing, about what kind of influences I want them to have in their lives, and I have reached the conclusion that I need to make some changes." My stomach tightened. Something bad was coming. I felt it in the air. What kind of changes? "I think the boys are spending too much time with people who do not share our modern parenting values. I need the visits to be more controlled, more supervised." She did not mention my name directly, but we both knew who she was talking about. I was the only grandmother present. Victoria's parents lived in another state, and they almost never saw them. "Victoria, I have always respected your rules with the boys. I have never done anything you did not approve of. It is not about what you have done, Mrs. Sullivan. It is about what you represent. You are from another generation. You have old-fashioned ideas about how to raise children, and I cannot allow that to influence Liam and Noah." I remained silent. The words got stuck in my throat. Old-fashioned, bad influence. As if the values I was taught, working hard, being honest, taking care of your family, were something negative. I understand. It was the only thing I could say. Because I did not know what else to say. Because I was in shock. "I am glad you understand. So from now on, visits will be once a month, here at my house, and I will be present the entire time." She hung up without saying goodbye. That night I cried for the first time in years. I cried until my chest hurt, until I had no more tears left. And when I finished crying, I stayed staring at the ceiling of my bedroom, wondering how I had allowed this to go so far. How a woman who had survived the death of her husband, who had raised a son alone, who had worked 30 years as a teacher, had ended up begging for crumbs of attention from her own family. The next day, I called Susan. I needed to hear a friendly voice, a voice that would not judge me for being weak. Susan, you were right. About everything. About Victoria. About how she is using me. Susan did not say, I told you so. She only said, come to my house. Let's drink coffee and think about what to do. That afternoon, sitting in Susan's kitchen, I told her everything, every detail, every small humiliation I had kept like shameful secrets. Susan listened to me without interrupting. When I finished, she took my hand and said something that changed me. Margaret, you are not responsible for Robert and Victoria's life. You already raised your son. You already did your job. They are adults. If they cannot live without your $4,500 a month, that is their problem, not yours. But the boys, I started to say. Grandchildren are not hostages, interrupted Susan. You have rights as a grandmother. If Victoria takes them away, there are legal ways to fight for them. But first you have to stop financing your own humiliation. Those words haunted me for days. Financing my own humiliation. That was exactly what I was doing. I paid them to treat me badly. I paid them to ignore me. I paid them so they could decide when I could be part of my grandchildren's lives. And I kept paying because I was afraid. Afraid of ending up completely alone. Afraid that if I cut off the money, I would also cut the only connection I had left with my family. But fear did not let me see that connection was already broken, that it had been broken for a long time, and that I was the only one still pretending everything was fine. Then the invitation arrived. A cream-colored envelope with gold lettering, Victoria's 40th birthday party. It will be a special celebration with friends and family. Your presence is important to us. I read those words, and something did not add up. My presence important? After everything that had happened the month before, now they wanted me there? I asked Robert over the phone. Mom, please come. Victoria wants you to be there. She says she wants to fix things. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that maybe Victoria had reflected, that she had understood she was being unfair. How foolish I was. The day of the party arrived, and I was nervous. I got ready with care. I chose an olive green dress that I have always liked. I wore barely any makeup. I put on the pearl earrings my husband gave me for our 20th anniversary. I wanted to look good. I wanted Victoria to see that I was not that old-fashioned old woman, she said. I wanted to show that I still had dignity. Now I realize I should not have needed to prove anything. I arrived half an hour before the indicated time because Victoria had asked me to help her with the final details. When I knocked on the door, she opened it with a huge smile. Mrs. Sullivan, how good that you arrived early. I need you to help me put the centerpieces on the tables in the garden. She did not greet me with a kiss. She did not ask me how I was. She just put me to work. During the next hour, I was her employee. I arranged tables, organized chairs, decorated spaces, served drinks in pitchers, cut fruit for the salads. She went back and forth giving orders, checking that everything was perfect. Robert appeared once, gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, and disappeared again. The boys were locked in their room playing video games. They did not even know I had arrived. When we finished, Victoria looked me up and down and said, You should get changed, Mrs. Sullivan. Your dress is wrinkled and sweaty. We do not want the guests to think you did not dress up for my party. I felt my cheeks burn, but I said nothing. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, fixed my hair, dried the sweat from my neck. When I came out, the first guests were already arriving. The party started, and I stayed in a corner, observing. Victoria shone. She wore an ivory dress I had seen on her in an expensive store weeks ago. It cost $800. Clearly she had bought it. With the money from her job, I supposed. Or maybe with the money I gave them. Probably the latter. She laughed, hugged her friends, posed for photos. She was the queen of her own party, and I was the old piece of furniture no one notices in the living room. Susan arrived late, as always. When she saw me alone in that corner, she came straight toward me. What are you doing here, set apart as if you were the maid? I am fine, Susan, just observing. This is not right, Margaret. Look at you. You look like a ghost in your own family. Before I could answer her, Victoria tapped a glass with a knife. The metallic clinking cut all conversations. Everyone turned toward her. Me too. My heart began to beat faster without knowing why. Victoria had that smile. That smile I now recognize as dangerous. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate with me," she began. Her voice was sweet like poisoned honey. "These 40 years have been an incredible journey. I have learned a lot about who I am, what I want, and above all, what kind of mother I want to be for my children." People applauded. She waited for the applause to die down. "That is why I want to make an important announcement today. An announcement about difficult decisions I have had to make for the well-being of Liam and Noah." Something cold ran down my back. Susan grabbed my arm. She felt it too. Victoria continued, looking directly toward where I was. "Starting today, my mother-in-law Margaret is no longer going to see my children. She is a bad influence on them. As a mother, I have to protect them from old-fashioned values and from people who do not understand modern parenting." She said it. She said it out loud, in front of everyone, in front of her friends, her co-workers, the neighbors, the people from her gym, in front of Susan, in front of Robert, who was pale as paper in the other corner, in front of the boys, who had come out of their room upon hearing the clinking of the glass and now looked at me confused. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel all the stares on me. Some were of pity, others of morbid curiosity, some of discomfort. Victoria waited. She waited for me to cry, to beg, to make a scene, to give her the show she had planned. I could see the anticipation in her eyes, the barely contained pleasure of someone who is about to watch their enemy destroy themselves. But something happened in that moment, something I myself did not completely understand. Instead of feeling pain, I felt clarity, a cold, crystalline clarity like ice, because finally I understood everything. This was never about the boys. It was never about parenting values or influences. This was a power show. She wanted to show everyone that she controlled me, that I was expendable, that she could humiliate me publicly, and I would do nothing because I needed them more than they needed me. I smiled. It was not a forced smile. It was genuine. Because in that exact second, while everyone waited to see me broken, I realized I had all the power. I always had it. Only I had been too blind to see it. "As you wish, Victoria," I said. My voice came out calm, almost kind. I took my cell phone out of my handbag. Victoria frowned. She did not understand what I was doing. I dialed the bank's number while everyone kept staring. Confusion spread through the room like fog. "Yes, good afternoon. This is Margaret Sullivan. I need to make an immediate cancellation." I spoke clearly, every word precise like a scalpel. "The automatic transfer that goes to Robert Sullivan's account. Account number ending in 3,725. $4,500 monthly. I want to cancel it right now and ensure the one for the 20th of this month is not processed." The change in the atmosphere was instantaneous. Some people let out small gasps. Others exchanged significant looks. I saw one of Victoria's friends whisper something to another. I saw a man I did not know raise his eyebrows in surprise. I saw how Victoria's smile froze on her face like a wax mask. I finished the call with the bank. I confirmed the cancellation. I thanked the representative. I put the cell phone in my bag calmly. Then I looked at Victoria again. She was pale, trembling slightly. I wanted to feel satisfaction, but I only felt tiredness, the tiredness of years. $4,500 every month for 5 years, I said, and my voice reached every corner of the garden. I did not yell. I did not need to yell. That is $270,000. Victoria, that is without counting the wedding I paid for in full. $18,000, without counting the Christmas gifts, the boys' birthdays, the outings I financed, the clothes I bought, the toys, the furniture, the medical emergencies. If we add it all up, it is probably $350,000, maybe more. I never kept an exact count because it was my family, and I do not put a price on love. I paused. Victoria tried to say something, but no voice came out. "But you do put a price on it, don't you? That is why you organized this public humiliation, because you wanted to demonstrate to everyone that you control me, that you can take my grandchildren away when you want, and I am going to keep paying anyway." Susan squeezed my arm. Robert walked toward us, but stopped halfway, as if he did not know which side to take. The boys looked at me with huge eyes, not understanding what was happening. One of Victoria's friends, a woman with red-dyed hair who had always followed her like a shadow, let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, Victoria, you always said your mother-in-law was generous, but you never mentioned she basically supported you all." Another woman, younger, added, "4,500 a month is more than I earn working full-time." The murmurs grew. Victoria realized she was losing control of the narrative, of her narrative. "That is private," she said, and her voice sounded shrill, desperate. "You have no right to speak about our finances in public." "You opened this door, Victoria," I replied. "You decided to make this public. I am just finishing what you started." I approached her, not with aggression, just with determination. "Enjoy your party. I paid for it in full. That 3-tiered cake that cost $400, the gourmet food you ordered from the French catering service, the imported decorations, everything. Consider it my last gift." I turned toward the boys. Liam and Noah were still there, confused, scared. I knelt in front of them, ignoring how my knees creaked. "Liam, Noah," I told them gently, taking their little hands in mine. "I want you to know something very important. Grandma loves you with all her heart. Nothing of what is happening here is your fault. Nothing. Do you understand?" Liam, the oldest, nodded with tears in his eyes. Noah just hugged me tight, so tight he almost took my breath away. "Are we not going to see you anymore?" Grandma asked Liam with a broken voice. I felt my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces, but I maintained my composure. "I do not know what is going to happen, my love, but know that always, always, you will be able to count on me, whatever happens." I hugged them both. I breathed in their smell of children's shampoo. I memorized the sensation of their little arms around my neck. Victoria took a step forward, as if she were going to separate them from me, but Susan stepped in between. "Let them say goodbye," Susan told her, with a voice that allowed no argument. I stood up slowly, kissed each boy's forehead, and walked toward the exit. Robert finally reacted. "Mom, wait, please, we can talk about this." I stopped, but I did not turn around. "No, Robert, we cannot. I already spoke. For 5 years I spoke with my money, with my time, with my unconditional love. Now it is your turn to speak. It is your turn to decide what kind of man you want to be, what kind of father, what kind of son." I kept walking. Susan came behind me. I could hear the murmurs growing behind my back. Voices of women commenting, voices of surprised men, but one voice stood out above the rest. It was Victoria's, hysterical. "All of you leave. The party is over. Get out of my house." I smiled inwardly. She had just destroyed her own celebration. I did not have to do anything else. Susan took me to her house in her car because I was shaking too much to drive. It was not fear. It was not sadness yet. It was pure adrenaline. The shock of having done something I never thought I would be capable of doing. When we arrived at her living room, I collapsed on the sofa and finally cried. I cried for the lost years. I cried for the wasted money. I cried for the family I thought I had, but which was never real. Susan hugged me without saying anything. Sometimes silence is the best comfort. After a while, when the tears dried, she brought me hot tea and cookies. "What am I going to do now?" I asked her. "You are going to live?" She answered simply. "You are going to live for yourself for the first time in a long time." That night I stayed at Susan's house. I did not want to be alone. Not yet. My phone did not stop ringing. Calls, messages, notifications. I put it on airplane mode and tucked it at the bottom of my bag. I was not ready to face the consequences yet. I just wanted to breathe, to feel that I had done the right thing, to convince myself that I was not a bad person for setting limits on people who had used me for so long. Susan prepared the guest room for me. Clean sheets that smelled of lavender, a soft lamp on the nightstand, a glass of fresh water, simple details that reminded me there was still goodness in the world, that there were still people who cared for me without expecting anything in return. The next morning I woke up early. Sunlight was coming through the window, and for a moment I forgot where I was. Then everything came back to me like a wave. The party, Victoria's words, my response. The boys' faces, the sound of my own voice canceling that transfer. I sat up in bed and grabbed my phone. 32 missed calls, 48 messages. Most were from Robert. Some from Victoria. 3 from unknown numbers. One was from Robert's sister, my niece Natalie, who lived in another state and with whom I hardly spoke. I opened her message. Aunt Margaret, I just spoke with Robert. I cannot believe what Victoria did to you. I always knew that woman was poisonous, but Robert never listened to me. I am on your side. If you need anything, call me. That message made me cry again, but this time they were different tears. Tears of relief. I was not completely alone. Robert's messages were predictable. The first ones were pleading. Mom, please call me. We need to talk. This got out of control. Then confusion. I do not understand why you did that in front of everyone. We could have discussed it in private. Then justification. Victoria was stressed. She did not mean to say things like that. You know her. And finally, anger. You canceled the money without even warning me. How are we going to pay the rent this month? That last message hurt me more than all the previous ones combined, because it confirmed what I already knew but did not want to accept. To my son, I was an ATM. Not a mother, not a person with feelings, just a source of money. Victoria's messages were different, more calculated, more manipulative. Mrs. Sullivan, I know things got tense yesterday. Maybe I exaggerated a little. We can speak like adults and resolve this. Later, the children did not stop crying all night asking for you. Do you really want to do this to them? And the last one, sent at 3 a.m. You are a cruel and selfish woman. I wish my mother-in-law had been different. The children are going to grow up knowing their grandmother abandoned them out of pride. I read that message 3 times. Every word was like a dagger designed to make me feel guilty, to make me doubt, to make me come crawling back, begging for forgiveness for daring to have dignity. Susan came in with coffee and toast. Did you read the messages? Yes. Yes. And nothing. I am not going to respond. Not yet. Susan smiled. Good. Let them sweat a little. Let them feel what it is like to need you and not have you. We ate breakfast in silence. Afterward, we went to my house to pick up some things. I needed clean clothes, my medications, some important documents. When I opened the door, I found 3 bouquets of flowers on the porch. One was from an expensive florist, red roses with a card from Robert. Mom, forgive me. I love you. The second was more modest, white daisies, no card. The third was huge, exotic orchids, with a card from Victoria. For the best mother-in-law in the world. Sorry for the misunderstanding. I took the 3 bouquets and put them straight into the trash can. Susan whistled. That was satisfying to see. I do not want their flowers, I told her. I want my dignity back. And that cannot be bought with petals. We entered the house and I began packing a suitcase. Susan helped me in silence. While I folded my clothes, the doorbell rang. Susan went to check. She came back with a serious face. It is Robert. He is at the door. He asks if he can speak with you. My heart sped up. Part of me wanted to run to hug him, to tell him everything was fine, that we could forget what happened. But another part, the new part that had just awakened yesterday, told me to stand firm. Tell him I am not ready to talk yet. Susan went down and relayed the message. I heard voices, Robert insisting, Susan being firm, then steps walking away, an engine starting. Silence. Susan came up again. He left, but he said he was going to return. I know. I finished packing, and we left. I decided to stay a few more days with Susan while I processed everything, while I discovered who I was without the weight of supporting my family. That afternoon, sitting in her garden drinking lemonade, Susan asked me, "What are you going to do about the boys?" That was the question I had been avoiding asking myself since yesterday. I do not know. I cannot simply forget about them. They are my grandchildren. No one is asking you to forget them. But you also cannot let Victoria use them as hostages. That night I researched grandparents' rights on the internet. I discovered that in our state, grandparents can petition for visitation rights if it is demonstrated that they have an established relationship with the grandchildren and that visitation is in the best interest of the children. I took notes. I saved links. For the first time in days, I felt something resembling hope. I was not going to get my grandchildren back by begging. I was not going to get them back by paying. I was going to get them back the right way, the legal way, the dignified way. The next day I called an attorney specializing in family law. He gave me an appointment for the next week. I told him a summary of the situation over the phone. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "Mrs. Sullivan, you have a solid case, but I need to warn you. This can get ugly. Your daughter-in-law is going to fight. Let her fight." I replied. I am no longer afraid, and it was true. For the first time in 5 years, I was not afraid, because I had nothing to lose. I had already lost my family's respect. I had already lost my money. I had already lost my naivety. The only thing I had left was my dignity, and that no one was ever going to take from me again. That week was strange. I lived at Susan's house, but I went to my house every day to pick things up, to check the mail, to keep the plants alive. Robert appeared 2 more times. The first time he rang the doorbell for half an hour. I was inside, watching from the window, but I did not open. The second time, he left a letter under the door. The letter said things he should have told me years ago. "Mom, I know I have been a bad son. I know I let Victoria treat you badly. I know I stayed silent when I should have defended you. But I need you. The kids need you. Please, forgive me." I read it several times. I searched for sincerity between the lines. I searched for real regret. But the only thing I found was need. He needed me. He did not miss me. He had not reflected on his behavior. He was just scared because the money had run out. I put the letter in a drawer. Maybe someday I would answer him. But not now. Now I needed to focus on myself, on healing, on rebuilding the life I had abandoned to please others. Susan helped me make a list of things I always wanted to do but never did because I was busy being the perfect grandmother or the self-sacrificing mother. The list was longer than I expected. I wanted to take painting classes. I wanted to travel to places I had only seen in magazines. I wanted to read all the books piled on my nightstand that I bought but never had time to open. I wanted to join a dance group. I wanted to learn to play piano. I wanted to live, really live. Not just exist waiting for the next phone call from my family asking me for something. I started little by little. I signed up for a watercolor class at the community center. The first day I arrived nervous, feeling out of place. But the teacher, a woman named Barbara of about 70 years, welcomed me with a huge smile. "Welcome to the group," she told me. "Here we are all beginners of the soul, no matter how many years we have been painting." The class was small, 6 women, all over 60, all with stories written in the wrinkles of their hands. During the following weeks, while we painted clumsy landscapes and disproportionate still lifes, we shared our lives. Barbara had lost her husband the previous year. Cynthia was coming out of a divorce after 40 years of marriage. Nora had raised 4 children alone and now finally had time for herself. We all had something in common. We had spent decades taking care of others and forgetting about ourselves. One afternoon, after class, Barbara invited me to have coffee. We went to a small coffee shop near the community center. "You can tell something is weighing on you, Margaret," she told me while stirring her coffee. "You do not have to tell me if you do not want to, but sometimes it helps to talk." And I talked. I told her everything. Victoria, Robert, the grandkids, the money, the public humiliation. Everything came out like an overflowing river. Barbara listened without judging. When I finished, she took my hand across the table. "Do you know what is the bravest thing you did? Canceling the money? No. The bravest thing was smiling. It was maintaining your composure when she expected to see you broken. That took away all her power. I had never seen it that way, but she was right. The days passed, and I began to feel different, lighter, as if I had been carrying a backpack full of rocks for years, and finally I had taken it off. I still missed my grandchildren. It still hurt to think of them. But the pain no longer paralyzed me. It motivated me to move forward with the legal process. My lawyer, Mr. Patterson, was a serious man of about 50 years with experience in custody cases and grandparents' rights. In our first in-person meeting, he reviewed all the documentation I had brought him: bank transfers, text messages, photos with the children throughout the years, written testimonies from Susan and Natalie. Everything was there. A mountain of evidence proving my close relationship with Liam and Noah. "This is solid," said Patterson. "We can demonstrate that you have been a constant and positive figure in the children's lives, that the separation is arbitrary and harmful to them. How long will it take? It depends. If Victoria decides to fight, we could be talking about 6 months to a year. If she is reasonable and reaches an agreement, maybe less." "She is not going to be reasonable," I told him with certainty. "She never has been." Patterson nodded. "Then prepare for a long battle. But I want you to know something. You have the right to see your grandchildren. You did nothing wrong, and we are going to fight this until the end." I left his office feeling empowered. For the first time, someone told me I had rights, that I mattered, that my relationship with my grandchildren had legal and emotional value. 2 weeks after the party, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered cautiously. It was Victoria. Her voice sounded different, controlled, cold. "Mrs. Sullivan, I need to inform you that I have consulted with a lawyer. They told me that if you try to start any legal process to see the children, I am going to countersue for harassment and emotional manipulation." I remained silent, processing the threat. "Do you have anything to say?" asked Victoria with a defiant tone. "Yes," I answered her. "Do what you have to do. I also have a lawyer. And I also have 5 years of documentation of every penny I gave you, of every time I was there for those children when you could not or would not be. So go ahead, Victoria, let's see what a judge says." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt strong. Susan, who had heard the whole conversation because she was by my side, applauded. "That is my Margaret, the one I have known all my life." That night Robert appeared again. This time he did not ring the doorbell. He stood in front of my door, waiting. I saw him from the window. He looked tired, defeated, older than his 38 years should make him look. After 10 minutes, I opened the door. "What do you want, Robert?" He looked up, surprised that I had come out. "Mom, I need to talk to you. Really. Not about money. About us." "Us? There is an us." My voice sounded harder than I intended. "I hope so," he said with a broken voice. "Because if there isn't, I do not know what I am going to do." I let him in. We sat in the living room, with a huge space between us on the sofa, a space that did not exist before. "Speak," I told him. Robert breathed deeply. "Victoria is out of control. Since the party, she has done nothing but scream. She says you ruined her life, that you humiliated her in front of everyone, that now her friends see her differently. I did not ruin anything. She ruined her own party by trying to humiliate me publicly." I know, Mom. And you are right. She planned all of that. She told me 2 days before the party. She told me she was going to announce that you would not see the kids anymore, and I told her she was crazy. We fought, but in the end, I did nothing to stop you. I let you arrive at that party without warning you. I let you fall into the trap. At least he was honest. That was something. Why, Robert? Why didn't you defend me?" "I am your mother." "Because I am a coward," he said, and tears began to roll down his cheeks. "Because I am afraid of Victoria. Afraid of her screaming, of her threats, of ending up alone with the kids if she decides to leave. And you are not afraid of losing me." The question remained floating in the air. Robert did not answer. He could not, because the answer was obvious. He had taken me for granted for so long that he never considered I could also leave. "The kids miss you," he said finally. "Liam asks for you every day. Noah cries at night. Victoria told them that you abandoned us, that you do not love us anymore." Rage rose up my throat like bile. "And you let her say that? You did not tell them the truth." "I tried, but she silences me. She tells me I have no voice in decisions about the children, because she is the one with them all day. She is with them all day, with the money I gave you, Robert. Money that was supposed to help you get ahead, not so she could stay home buying expensive clothes." Robert lowered his head. "I never should have accepted your money, or I should have accepted it only temporarily. But it became so easy, so comfortable, and Victoria always had a reason why we needed it. One emergency after another. And I believed her because I wanted to believe her. And now? Now I do not know how we are going to survive. The rent is $2,000. The kids' expenses, another $1,000. Food, utilities, my car. With my salary, I only cover half. Victoria says she is going to have to work full-time again, and she is furious because she says you are forcing her. I am not forcing her to do anything. She is a 35-year-old adult woman. She should have been working this whole time. I know. You are right about everything, Mom. But that does not solve the problem now. I got up from the sofa. Robert, I came into this world to be your mother, to raise you, love you, teach you. I already did that. I already did my job. I did not come to be your bank. I did not come to finance your marriage for the rest of my life. I am 68 years old. I deserve to live for myself. I am not asking you to give me money again, he said quickly. I am just asking you not to take yourself away from me too. The kids already lost you. I do not want to lose you. His words touched me, but not enough to make me forget 5 years of being invisible. If you really do not want to lose me, prove it. Stop being complicit in Victoria's mistreatment. Defend me when she speaks badly of me. Tell your children the truth. And more importantly, seek help, therapy, because this is not a healthy marriage. Robert remained silent for a long while. I could see the internal battle in his eyes. The part of him that knew I was right against the part that was too scared to do anything about it. Victoria is never going to accept going to therapy, he said finally. She says therapy is for weak people, then go alone. Learn to set boundaries. Learn to be the father and the man your children need you to be. He looked at me with pleading eyes. And if I try? If I really change things, could you forgive me? I do not know, Robert. Honestly, I do not know. But I do know that I am going to fight for my rights to see my grandchildren. With or without your support. I have a lawyer, I have evidence, and I have the determination I lacked for 5 years. He stood up slowly, as if every muscle weighed on him. Can I hug you? I hesitated, but in the end I nodded. We hugged, and I felt how thin he was, how tense, how broken. My son was destroyed, and part of me wanted to save him as I had always done. But the other part, the new part that was learning to be strong, knew he had to save himself. After Robert left, I sat in the darkness of my living room thinking about everything. About how I had reached this point, about the decisions I made, believing I was helping when in reality I was enabling. About the love I was waiting to receive back, but receiving only bills and demands. Susan was right from the beginning. I had financed my own humiliation, but that was over. That version of me was over. The following days were quieter. I kept going to my watercolor classes. I also signed up for a book club at the library. I met more people. Women like me, who were rediscovering themselves after years of living for others. One of them, a lady named Linda, just like my friend, invited me to a yoga group for seniors. It is gentle, she told me. Perfect for our 60-something bodies. I accepted. And I discovered I loved it. The stillness, the breathing, the focus on my own body after years of ignoring it. One afternoon, while I was in a stretching pose I could barely hold, my instructor, a young man named Mark of about 30 years, approached. Mrs. Sullivan, I see you differently lately, more present, more at peace. I was surprised he noticed. I had barely been going for 3 weeks. I am working on that, I told him. On being present. It shows. Keep it up. Inner peace reflects in everything we do. Those simple words stayed with me. Inner peace. When was the last time I had that? Probably before my husband died. Probably more than 5 years ago. But now, slowly, I was getting it back. 2 months after the party, I received a legal summons. Victoria had fulfilled her threat. She was suing me for negative influence on minors and emotional harassment toward the mother. I read the document with my lawyer Patterson. It was ridiculous. Her arguments were vague, without real evidence. This is just intimidation, explained Patterson. She wants to scare you so you withdraw your petition for visitation rights. I am not withdrawing anything, I told him firmly. Good. Then we are going to respond with our own suit, and we are going to present all the evidence we have. The legal process was slow and painful. Meetings with lawyers, written statements, document collection. But I stood firm. Susan, Barbara, Natalie, They all supported me. They reminded me why I was fighting. For my grandchildren, for my right to be part of their lives. During this time, Robert tried to be a mediator. He called me every week asking me to reconsider. "Mom, this is costing Victoria more in lawyers than we can pay. She is desperate. Well, let her withdraw her absurd lawsuit and accept a reasonable visitation agreement." I answered him every time. "You know she is not going to do that. Then I guess we are going to court." The frustration in his voice was palpable, but I was not going to give in. Not this time. 3 months later came the first hearing. I dressed carefully that day. A pearl gray suit that made me look professional and dignified. Susan insisted on accompanying me. When we entered the courtroom, I saw Victoria sitting with her lawyer on the other side. She wore a conservative black dress and had her hair pulled back. She looked like the perfect, concerned mother. Robert was by her side, looking at the floor. The judge, an older man named Judge Anthony Miller, reviewed both cases. He listened to Victoria's lawyer's arguments first. They spoke of how I had abandoned the children by cutting financial support, of how I had caused emotional trauma to the family, of how my old-fashioned values were detrimental to modern parenting. Everything was manipulation of the facts. Everything was twisting the truth. When it was Patterson's turn, he presented our evidence. The bank transfers showing 5 years of financial support. The text messages showing how Victoria controlled every aspect of my relationship with the grandchildren. The photos of birthdays, Christmases, school days where I was always present. Testimonies from Susan, from Natalie, from the children's teachers who knew me as an involved and loving grandmother. The judge listened to everything in silence. His expression revealed nothing. At the end of the hearing, he said, "I am going to review all this information carefully, but I warn both parties, this case is not about you. It is about what is best for Liam and Noah, and I am going to need to speak with the children." My heart stopped. The children were going to have to testify. They were going to have to choose. I did not want to put them in that position. But Patterson had warned me this could happen. We left the courtroom, and Victoria intercepted me in the hallway. "This is your fault," she told me with poison in her voice. "You are destroying this family out of pride." "No, Victoria. You destroyed this family when you decided you could humiliate me publicly and that I was going to stay silent. Everything was perfect before you ruined my party. Nothing was perfect. It was a lie sustained by my money. And lies always fall." Robert tried to intervene. "Mom, Victoria, please, we are in a courthouse." "Shut up, Robert," Victoria snapped at him. "This is between your mother and me." And there it was, the truth coming out finally. This had always been between Victoria and me. Robert was just the ground where we fought. The children were the weapons she used. And the money was the battlefield. But no more. "See you at the next hearing," I told her, and left with Susan. In the car, Susan asked me how I felt. Exhausted, but sure that I am doing the right thing. The following week, I received an unexpected call. It was Barbara from my painting class. "Margaret, I do not know if this helps you, but 2 days ago, I was at the supermarket and I saw your daughter-in-law. She was screaming at your grandchildren in the middle of the aisle. It was horrible. The older boy was crying and she grabbed him by the arm so hard the boy screamed in pain. Several people stood staring. I took a photo with my cell phone just in case. My blood ran cold. Was Liam okay? I do not know. When Victoria saw me looking, they left quickly. But Margaret, that did not look normal. It looked like mistreatment. I asked her to send me the photo and to write a statement of what she saw. Barbara agreed immediately. When I showed the evidence to Patterson, his expression became serious. This changes things. If we can demonstrate a pattern of aggressive behavior from Victoria toward the children, the judge is going to take this very seriously. "I do not want to take the children from her," I told him quickly. "I just want to be able to see them. I understand, but the children's welfare comes first. And if they are in emotional or physical danger with their mother, the judge has to know." That night I could not sleep. I thought of Liam crying in that supermarket, of Victoria grabbing him with violence. How many times had that happened without anyone there to see it? I felt guilty. Should I have noticed signs before? Should I have investigated more? But I also knew Victoria was an expert at hiding her true nature. 2 weeks later, the social worker assigned to the case went to visit the children. She spoke with them separately, without Victoria present. Robert told me later that Liam had been honest. He had said he missed Grandma, that he did not understand why he did not see her anymore, that Mom sometimes got very angry and yelled ugly things. Noah, smaller, had just cried and asked for me. The social worker's report was clear. The children had a strong emotional bond with their grandmother. The separation had no justification beyond the conflict between adults. And there were concerns about the mother's emotional management. The second hearing was completely different from the first. This time Judge Miller had the social worker's report in his hands. He had Barbara's photos. He had testimonies from neighbors Patterson had managed to interview. People who had seen Victoria yell at the kids at the park, at school, on the street. He had the statement from Liam's teacher, saying the boy had changed in the last few months, that he was quieter, more anxious. The judge started the hearing with a direct question for Victoria. "Ma'am, can you explain to me why you considered it necessary to completely separate your children from their paternal grandmother when all the evidence indicates she has been a positive and stable figure in their lives?" Victoria stuttered. Her lawyer tried to intervene, but the judge stopped him with a gesture. "I want to hear from her directly. I just wanted to protect my children from values that are not appropriate for our family," began Victoria. But her voice no longer sounded sure. It sounded defensive. "What values specifically?" pressed the judge. "For example, Mrs. Sullivan taught my children that it is okay to ask family for money when you need it. That is not what I want them to learn." The judge raised an eyebrow. "I understand Mrs. Sullivan provided significant financial support to your family for 5 years. That is correct." Victoria turned red. "Yes, but that was her decision. No one asked her to do it." Patterson stood up. "Your Honor, I have text messages here where Mrs. Victoria specifically requested money from my client on multiple occasions. I can present them as evidence." The judge nodded. The messages were projected on a screen. Everyone could see them. Message after message from Victoria, asking for money for emergencies, for expenses, for luxuries disguised as needs. The room fell silent. Victoria looked at the screen with horror. Robert had his head in his hands. The judge reviewed the messages with an increasingly severe expression. "Ma'am, these messages completely contradict what you just said. Clearly you requested financial assistance on a regular basis." That was before," stammered Victoria. "Before I realized she was using the money to control us." "Control you, how exactly?" "She expected that by giving us money, she would have unlimited access to my children, that she could see them when she wanted, do what she wanted with them, without respecting my rules as a mother." "And what were those rules that Mrs. Sullivan did not respect?" asked the judge. Victoria opened her mouth, but nothing came out, because there were no specific rules. There were only excuses invented to maintain control. Patterson seized the moment. "Your Honor, my client respected every rule imposed on her. There is evidence of messages where she asks for permission for every visit, for every gift, for every activity with her grandchildren. This is not an invasive grandmother. This is a grandmother who has been systematically controlled and manipulated." The judge addressed me. "Mrs. Sullivan, what is it that you seek with this lawsuit?" I stood up with trembling legs, but a firm voice. "Your Honor, I just want what any grandmother who loves her grandchildren would want: time with them, to be able to see them grow, to be part of their lives. I do not seek custody. I do not seek to take anything from their mother. I only seek what I should have always had, the right to be their grandmother. And the financial support? Do you plan to resume it?" "No, Your Honor, that chapter is closed. My son and his wife are adults capable of supporting their own family. My help created a dependency that was not healthy for anyone." The judge nodded slowly. "I am going to order a complete psychological evaluation for both parties, and I am going to order temporary supervised visits while this case is resolved. Mrs. Sullivan, you will be able to see your grandchildren twice a week, 2 hours each time, at a family mediation center. The visits will begin next week." I felt tears wanting to come out, but I held them back. I had won something. Not everything, but something. Victoria exploded. "This is unfair. You cannot force me to expose my children to her." "Ma'am, I can, and I am doing so. said the judge with a tone that allowed no argument. "And I suggest you control your temper, or I am going to have to consider if that temper is appropriate for your children's well-being." Victoria stayed silent, trembling with rage. Robert took her by the arm, trying to calm her, but she pulled away abruptly. We left the courtroom, and this time I was the one smiling. Susan hugged me tight. "You did it. You are going to see your grandchildren." The first supervised visit was a week later. I arrived at the Family Mediation Center half an hour early, with my stomach in knots. I had brought board games, coloring books, some of Liam and Noah's favorite toys I remembered. The supervisor, a kind woman named Nora of about 40 years, welcomed me and explained the rules. No speaking badly of the parents. No questions about the family situation. Just focus on enjoying time with your grandchildren. I nodded. I did not need to talk about any of that. I just needed to hold them. When the door opened and I saw Liam and Noah enter, my heart stopped. They had grown so much in these 3 months. Liam was taller, Noah had lost another tooth. Both stood frozen upon seeing me, as if they were not sure it was real. "Hello, my loves," I said with a trembling voice. Liam was the first to react. He ran toward me and hugged me so tight he almost knocked me over. Noah came behind, crying. "Grandma, we missed you so much," said Liam between sobs. "Mom said you didn't want to see us anymore." I looked at Nora. She nodded slightly, indicating I could respond. "That is not true, my love. I have always wanted to see you. Always. There were adult things that got complicated, but none of that has to do with how much I love you." "You aren't mad at us anymore?" asked Noah with his little voice. "I was never mad at you. Never. You did nothing wrong." We passed the next 2 hours playing, laughing, telling each other things. Liam told me about school, about his new interest in dinosaurs. Noah showed me he already knew how to write his full name. I listened to them with absolute attention, memorizing every word, every laugh, every expression on their little faces. When the moment came to say goodbye, it was heartbreaking. Both cried. They begged me to go home with them. I had to explain to them that it was not yet possible, but that we would see each other again soon. "On Friday?" asked Liam. "Yes, my love, on Friday. Nora had to help me separate them from me." When they left, I stayed in that empty room, crying like I hadn't cried in months. But they were different tears. They were tears of relief, of love, of hope. That night Robert called me. "The kids didn't stop talking about you the whole way home." Victoria was furious, but she couldn't say anything in front of them. "How are you, Robert?" Confused, tired. Victoria blames me for all this. She says if I had taken her side from the beginning, none of this would have happened. And what do you say? There was a long pause. That maybe all this had to happen. That maybe we needed to reach this point for things to change for real. The visits continued, every Friday and every Tuesday. 2 sacred hours where the world reduced to my grandchildren and me. Slowly they began to open up more. Liam told me, "Mom yelled a lot lately," that she fought with Dad every night. Noah told me he had nightmares where I disappeared and he couldn't find me. Every revelation was a dagger in my heart. But it was also confirmation that I was doing the right thing. The psychological evaluation arrived a month later. My evaluator was a psychologist who spent 3 sessions with me talking about my life, my relationship with Robert, my relationship with the grandkids. "Mrs. Sullivan," he told me in the last session, "you show remarkable resilience. Your decision to establish boundaries was psychologically healthy. I am going to recommend you be granted visitation rights without supervision." When Victoria's report came out, the psychologist noted significant controlling tendencies and use of children as tools in adult conflicts. He recommended mandatory therapy. The judge scheduled the final hearing for 6 months after the start of the case. In that time, many things changed. Robert moved into a smaller apartment with the boys. Victoria had become so unbearable, he finally made the decision to separate. "It isn't divorce yet," he explained to me, "but we need space. The kids need peace." Victoria got a full-time job. She no longer had a choice. Without my money, without Robert completely financing everything, she had to face reality. My visits with the grandkids switched to unsupervised after 2 months. I could bring them to my house, cook for them, do homework together, watch movies. It was what it should have always been. Barbara, Susan, and my other friends became part of my grandchildren's lives too. Liam and Noah now had a whole community of grandmothers who loved them. One afternoon, while we were baking cookies in my kitchen, Liam asked me something that broke my heart. "Grandma, why is Mom so different from you?" "Different how, my love? You are always calm. You always listen to us. Mom is always angry. She always yells." I sat at his level. "Sometimes adults have problems they don't know how to solve, Liam. And those problems come out as anger. But that doesn't mean your mom doesn't love you. It just means she is going through something difficult. It is our fault." "No, never. None of this is your fault." Noah, covered in flour, asked, "Are you going to stay with us forever now?" "I am going to be here as long as you need me, that I promise you." And it was a promise I knew I could keep, because now I had the legal means to do so. I had rights. I had a voice. I had power. The final hearing arrived. Judge Miller reviewed all reports, all evaluations, all testimonies. He looked at Victoria and said, "Ma'am, you attempted to use your children as a weapon in a personal conflict. That is unacceptable. However, I recognize you are seeking professional help now, and that counts." Then he looked at me. "Mrs. Sullivan, you have demonstrated patience, unconditional love, and respect for the legal process. I am going to grant you permanent visitation rights, 2 days a week without supervision, plus alternating holidays and 2 weeks in the summer." I felt the air return to my lungs. I had done it. I had really done it. Victoria said nothing. She just stood up and left the room. Her lawyer followed her running. Robert approached me. "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up, for fighting for them. I am always going to fight for my grandchildren, Robert, always." That night, I celebrated with Susan, Barbara, and my friends from the painting group. It wasn't a big celebration. Just coffee at Susan's house, chocolate cake, and lots of laughter. "Here's to Margaret," said Susan, raising her mug. "The woman who refused to stay invisible." "To Margaret," everyone repeated. I smiled, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Pride in myself, in my strength, in having chosen my dignity over the comfort of staying silent. The following months were ones of adjustment. Robert started therapy seriously. He told me in our weekly calls how he was learning to set boundaries, to be a better father, to not lose himself in others' demands. Victoria remained in mandatory therapy by court order. I do not know if she really changed, but at least she no longer had power over me or my grandchildren. My days filled with color, literally. My paintings improved so much. Barbara encouraged me to exhibit in a small community gallery. I sold 3 paintings, not for the money, but for the validation that I was more than a grandmother, more than a mother, more than an ATM. I was Margaret, a 68-year-old woman with talent, with friends, with a life of her own. Liam and Noah spent Wednesdays and Saturdays with me. Sometimes they stayed to sleep. I prepared their favorite meals. I read them stories. I taught them to cook, to paint, to take care of the plants in my garden. I taught them, above all, that love cannot be bought, that true love is presence, time, attention, not money. One Saturday afternoon, while Liam and I were planting tomatoes in the garden, he said something to me that will stay engraved forever. "Grandma, when I grow up, I want to be like you." "Like me? Why, my love?" "Because you are brave. Dad told me you fought for us when everyone told you no. That is being brave for real." I wiped my tears with the sleeve of my shirt full of dirt. Bravery isn't not having fear, Liam. It is doing the right thing, even if you have a lot of fear. And yes, I was very afraid. But you guys are worth every second of that fear. Noah, who had been chasing butterflies, came running. "Grandma, I caught one. Look." The orange butterfly fluttered softly in his little hands. "It is beautiful, my love. But what if we let it go? Beautiful things are not made to be locked up." Noah opened his hands and the butterfly flew free. He stayed watching it fly away with wonder. That scene stayed with me, because I too had been like that butterfly, trapped for years in hands that wanted to control me. But now I flew free, and I was teaching my grandchildren to fly too, to not let anyone lock them up, to value themselves, to set boundaries, to love without losing themselves. Months later, I received an unexpected call. It was Victoria. "Miss O'Sullivan, I need to talk to you." Her voice sounded different. Tired, humble. I agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop. When she arrived, she looked changed. Thinner. No makeup. Real. "I came to ask for forgiveness," she said, without beating around the bush. "I do not expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it. What I did to you was unforgivable. I used my own children as weapons. I treated you horribly after everything you did for us. And the worst part is, I did it because I was envious. Envious. Of the relationship you have with Liam and Noah, of how they see you, of the genuine love they have for you. I wanted that love, but I did not know how to earn it without controlling it. And when I tried to control it, I lost it." I said nothing. I just let her speak. Therapy has helped me see a lot of things. How I manipulated, how I used others, how my need for control came from my own insecurity. She took a sip of her coffee. "I do not expect us to be friends, but the children need you. And if I am honest, I also need to learn from you. From how to love without suffocating." I looked her in the eyes. I saw something I had never seen before. Sincerity. "Victoria, I am going to tell you something you need to hear. Forgiving you is going to take time, but I respect that you are working on yourself, for your children, and for you." We never became close again, but we reached an agreement of mutual respect. Victoria learned to let go. I learned that some battles are worth fighting. Today, 2 years after that party that changed everything, I am sitting in my garden watching Liam and Noah play. I am 70 years old, just turned. My friends organized a surprise party for me. Robert came with the kids. Even Victoria sent flowers with a note. "Thank you for not giving up on us. My life is completely different now. I no longer live to please others. I live for myself. And in that living for myself, it turns out I have much more to give. Real love. Not bought, not forced. Just love." Susan approaches with another slice of cake. "What are you thinking about?" "That it took me 68 years to find my voice. But now that I have it, no one is ever going to take it from me again. Would you like me to create an image description of Margaret's garden or the painting she sold to help visualize her new life?"